Welcome and good evening to awakradio.co.uk. Evening, folks. Wonderful lineup we have, some amazing people as we discussed. We've got a very, very interesting person that works with animals. Her name is Loesje Jacob from Canada, and her website is linkingawareness.com. And let's introduce Loesje. Loesje, are you there?
I am here, John. It's a beautiful evening, and thanks for having me with you here on this talk show.
Pleasure, and thank you for making time for us. I know your schedule is very, very busy with all your travels, all your projects, which we'll get into. Let's dive in straight ahead. Loesje, how did you get into working with modalities, working with animals? If you could just give us a bit of background and where it's taken you today.
Wow. Well, we'll have to be careful, John, because it's only an hour show. So the Coles Note version is, for years I was a dog and cat groomer and a dog trainer, behaviorist, and I also have my own horses, which I trained myself. I'm not a horse trainer. And over the years, the animals started to show me synchronicities in their lives and the people's lives. And I started to realize when I was grooming the dogs or the cats, when my hands were on them, I was receiving information from them. Like, that sounds crazy. How do you receive information through my subtle sense of touch? And I would just know things about the animals and their families. And after a while, it was like the animals were saying, you must help us. We've been helping humans for so long. You have to help us help the humans. And I was like, what is that? And I started noticing that some of the dogs or the cats or even the horses would be carrying a similar illness to their owner. And I would notice that they were keeping their owners well. And so because of noticing this over the years, I started to search for different forms of consciousness medicine to support the animal kingdom to release what they were holding for the humans, and therefore they would get well, but also their human counterpart would start to get well as well. Well, very well.
Very interesting.
Yeah. But you got to understand, John, that I'm talking like 30 years ago, and it wasn't really something that I was going to talk about in my business or even to many of my friends, let alone on a radio show. So we've come a long ways.
Yeah, so you'd say that the consciousness has expanded. People are more accepting to things like this?
It's amazing change. I can go into a coffee shop and have a similar conversation to the one that we're beginning to have now, whereas 30 years ago, I was afraid to tell anybody that, I dropped the phone, and in my mind I was thinking, oh, I don't feel like getting up to get the phone. And a dog that I was rescuing, a big Akita dog, looked at me and he walked over to the phone and he picked it up and he handed it to me. I didn't say one word, didn't give one command. I just had a thought in my imagination. But who would I tell about that 30 years ago?
Yeah. So animals definitely have telepathic communication with the universe, with nature.
I think that they are our greatest teachers on the planet at this time, because they will validate with their physical actions the nonverbal communication that we are receiving and sending with them.
And just coming back to when you said with people that had illnesses and the dogs would pretty much be carrying that consciousness, that's what you're saying?
The dogs and the cats, what I was noticing is that the energy that forms that created the so-called illness in the human, it was as if the animal would sponge off some of that information, and then their body would start to manifest it to take it away from the owner so the owner could stay well, and the animal would carry it for them. Yeah,
that I totally resonate, because there are quite a few metaphysicians that do that through their healing or balancing practices. So, I mean, I've done that before, where you take the negative resonance off the person to help them better. So that's very, very interesting that's how you viewed it through the animals. And then what came of the animals as time progressed?
Well, as time progressed and I started to understand more clearly and started to work to help them to release those frequencies, animals would look at me, especially dogs, and they'd go like, oh, but I can't let that go because maybe it'll stick to somebody else. And so they had this concern for the whole, and they didn't want to transfer that energy, low frequency energy, to anybody else. So, and then I would have a conversation with the dog and say, no. When you let it go, it'll transmute back into what we would call 0 point field energy, and it won't harm anybody. Oh, okay then. And so then I would see the dog getting better, but also the human getting better as well.
Yeah. So yeah, they definitely, because I mean, I've heard many times people say, do dogs experience the emotions? And they certainly do. I mean, I've seen it through the work that I was invited as a birthday gift last year in 2011 when I came onto your workshop when you were out here in South Africa, and that was such an amazing experience because connecting to the horses, connecting to the holographic fields, and maybe for some people, if it's possible to relay that back in layman's terms, how their healing process actually happens. Because for me, when I connected to the horse that I was with, I saw the connection to the greater universe and what energy it was actually bringing through, which is something I'd never done to go and connect with specifically a horse to that level. Is it possible to elaborate on that sort of level of healing at the workshop where we were at?
Wow. In 3 words or less, heart field. I believe that the animals have a clear, pure heart field, and horses have a very large heart field. So at first, the horses were showing me when we stand in their presence that by resonance, by a frequency of information from their heart field, it would be like if I had a cello in the corner of the room and I had one in my hands and I played the E string, and the cello in the corner of the room would resonate that similar string. So it would start to vibrate at the same resonance factor or the same note, sing the same song. So I was noticing that with the animals, and particularly our domestics would call it the horse, the dog, the cat, the bird. With the horse, when we stand in their presence, things start to change and we feel better. So that kind of made sense. And then I started noticing something different, where I would say the horses were projecting energy and information like a dolphin. And with my inner vision, I was seeing those energy configurations, but I didn't want to tell anybody. Mm-hmm. And finally, a few years later, I had a new horse show up, and it's now showing up in pictures. So these energy configurations are now showing up in the pictures. And it just really reminds me of a dolphin, when we see how the dolphin is doing that projection and sending of information and energy to the recipient.
Yeah, that definitely I can confirm that, because the frequencies or the ripples of interdimensional energy, is the way I translate it to be, were very, very of a high heart frequency, and it was just absolutely phenomenal. I know one of the ladies that was on the workshop. The horse went to the specific area where she needed healing. She never ever discussed it with anyone. But the horse moved and did particular body notions and indicated where her illness was, which I found absolutely amazing to see it all unfold. And that was such an amazing experience and a wonderful workshop that you gave us, Loesje, on that.
Yeah, thank you, John. And I think the animals, in their lives, they like to be in a place of safety and comfort. So first they're going to search out safety, and then they're going to search out comfort. So when we talk about the unified field or the whole universe, the animal would feel when something is out of harmony, let's call it, or some people would say out of balance or out of equilibrium. So they're going to move to that area, and they're going to do something to shift that lack of communication or that low vibration so that they can feel safe and comfortable. So when they come to the human physical body, it's as if they'll scan the body and go, oh, that doesn't feel very good. I like it, that feels good. So if I blow on this, or if I send a frequency, or if I stand against this person, and the warmth of my body is going to now make that feel better. And in that feeling better, all of a sudden, the recipient, let's talk about the human, goes through a change. And that change, some people might want to call healing.
Yeah. Definitely, what you described is exactly what happened, because what I saw was the horse did a scan and then moved into position where she needed the healing, and she put its head gently rested on the area where she needed, and it was absolutely amazing. The shift that this lady went through was absolutely phenomenal. And then those horses where we did the workshop actually work with, I think it's cerebral palsy children. Is that correct?
That's therapeutic riding, and they're
Yeah.
using a different concept. And yes, they are working with children with all kinds of challenges for sure.
Yeah, and then, yeah.
You know, this reminds me of something else that was amazing. I take groups of youth, I mentor youth, and I took a group of youth into the jungle, deep jungles of Malaysia. It's the Temiar jungle. And we were practicing different forms of energy medicine. And now all of a sudden there was no horses, cats, or dogs with us, but the insects started helping us with our sessions, we'll call it. And we would have a stick bug walking to where the imbalance was in the person's body, or we would have mosquitoes that would bite someone, but they would be like on the heart meridian line, exactly on the acupuncture points that were stuck or were not allowing communication of chi energy. So that was a huge epiphany for us to watch the insect kingdom join us in our healings and do this similar thing to find the harmony and to create harmony in the field on that person.
Sure, that's outstanding. And it also goes back to, because in the 90s, what came to me connecting with animals was they so desperately, and I'm sure you can confirm this from your perspective, they so desperately wanted humanity to work with them. They so desperately wanted to say, you've neglected us for so long, but we do have other answers to the world's problems, because I believe nature has got the power to actually fill the gaps that humanity are actually looking for.
You know, John, I can't agree more. And for me, some of my projects take me to those places where the animals are calling. They want mystery schools. They want to teach us about this. And so some of my classes, for example, I've got one coming up in February, and we go into southern Sumatra where there's 63 elephants that are wanting to teach us and show us different forms of healing and communication. And we are bringing people to learn from the animals and learn from nature again, because I really think that's one of our biggest disconnects as we live on the earth, is that we've lost that connection to nature and that universal mind that nature is completely in contact with all the time.
Yeah, and isn't it fair to say that that's what the ancient teachings and the First Nations had such a grand connection? Because I know with the African Bushmen, before they want to take an animal's life, they connect with it, and then if the animal gives it permission, then they can go through this whole ritual, which is as less pain as possible, but the animal allows itself to be the sustenance for the Bushmen, for them to eat and their family to eat. But nowadays it's not like that. It's just slaughter whatever they can. And it's actually quite sad. It's as if humanity has lost, which they are coming back to, has through time and through the ages had lost that connection to nature. So it seems like nature's calling back and saying, we do have the answer, we do have the way, just work with us.
I completely agree with you. And so a lot of the work that I do, we go back and we ask the Aboriginals, and we also support the Aboriginals to remember their original way, which we could call the nature way. Absolutely. I have another project that I'm working with Dr. Bruti Mary Galdikas. She's one of the world's leading primatologists, and she has an orangutan care and quarantine center in Borneo, in Kumai, Borneo. And one of my dreams that as we start to listen to the orangutans is I believe that the orangutans hold solutions to the loss of jungle and the planting of the palm oil, which is taking away their habitat in jungle. And my thing is, why are we not asking the animals for the solution? So therefore, my linking awareness class helps people to remember how to listen to nature, listen to the animals, so that we could connect and get deeper, long-lasting solutions to some of the problems that are happening in the world today.
Yeah, and it's amazing that you say that. What comes to mind is I did a show a couple of weeks ago at the end of September, and what we spoke about is, which my philosophy is, energy work, herbs, working with animals should be brought back. Well, not be brought back. It was never brought back. It was never in schools, but it should be introduced to schools so people can become in touch of energy. They can function from a left and a right hemisphere of the brain instead of just the left as society has, and bring in those qualities so where they can understand themselves, nature, the earth, and bring back that level of respect for pretty much everything and themselves. That I'm very much for that. Would you see something like what you're doing, what you've created, what you've pioneered, a positive thing to introduce to schools at junior or high school or college level?
Well, John, you've just tapped into one of my biggest dreams, is to support the change of the school system worldwide. And this year I brought a very spectacular property in British Columbia where I have a learning center. And one of the biggest things that I do is sponsor and mentor youth from all walks of life, from all parts of the earth world. And we teach them consciousness-based medicine to heal themselves and their peers, and also to connect with nature and animals, because our youth today have such clear connection to that nonverbal language. But my question has been, who is teaching them how to understand their filters and when to listen, when not to listen, and also who is supporting them on how to get into the healing mode for themselves and their friends? Because I really believe that we're in a time when we can self-heal and support the healing of our peers.
Yeah. Definitely. But what would you say? Are there people ready to accept that on a broader scale? The people that you meet, because you travel extensively.
Yes.
Is there an openness to that? Because I'm seeing it more so with the people that I'm connecting now, obviously through the radio station, and people that I'm talking to. People are saying we want change, and the old ways have never really worked. The very ancient ways do work. And this is part of the ancient ways being revived in a way of reconnecting and bringing balance, and also connecting to the higher dimensions. Because like going back to what I saw with the holographic interaction with the horse, was connecting pretty much from a 0-point consciousness. And like I've stated before on the radio show, when we function from a 0-point consciousness, which is what we all moving to, or a lot of people are moving towards, you basically connected to everything in an instant.
Yeah, I agree. And the animals and nature brings us into that potential space very easily. And it brings us into that space where all of a sudden, I don't know if I'm myself or the horse, or if I'm both simultaneously. And when I go into that space, big change happens. So dropping into the field of potentiality is where the animals bring us in a very natural way. Definitely. And just in response to your other question, are people around the world ready for these type of thoughts and the concept that the animals are more than we ever thought they were? Absolutely. Absolutely. Every continent, and I've been everywhere from South Africa to Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Singapore, Indonesia, the United States, Canada. I'm on my way to Brazil. People are it's like they're thirsty. It's like they're dry sponges to try to come to new understandings. And I get, I accept donations to sponsor the youth that I sponsor. And I've had people walk up to a class of mine saying they came to the class just to share and to donate money so that we could pay for youth that can't afford these kind of classes. We're in an amazing time.
Yeah, definitely. But that I'm finding as well, more people are starting to say, I'm privileged and I want to reach out, which is pretty much the heart consciousness where we've all moved into. I want to help, and it really doesn't make a difference whether I get something back, but it's about giving. And that is so important, what you just said now. I wanted to ask you, linkingawareness.com, your website.
Yes.
What other, have you got courses, the courses that you're going to be running on there, and are they updated? Is it specifically in Canada, or are there workshops that you're running around the world that are also going to be on there?
I'll try and do a really quick overview, John. My linking awareness classes, this concept was brought together with my daughter, Emily. I have a daughter, Emily, and my son, Mason, who have been amazing support and teachers from before the minute they were born, I think, and definitely on this journey with me. So Emily has supported me to put together this construct for this class, to communicate non-verbally from animals, interdimensional beings, nature, a cell in the body, a part of the body, a nonverbal child, in utero babies. It really doesn't matter, because we tend to have this thought that we're smarter if we can talk. Well, that's not the case always. So this class that we've put together, the website, it does highlight that class. We're trying to explain it because it's a bit of a more than just communication class. So my schedule for around the world is on there, and I do teach on every continent, as well as bring people to my property in British Columbia, which is situated in nature. The black bears visit, and the hummingbirds, and the eagles, and the hawks. And so my schedule for that is on there. And right now we're just putting up 2013. But I also teach for an international healing modality, which is called the Body Talk System. And I teach lay people, professionals, doctors, veterinarians to become certified practitioners for humans. Once they've taken those classes, they are allowed to take my advanced class for animals. So people that are certified practitioners for humans then learn how to work with the animal kingdom. And I also have put together a class with a colleague of mine in Strenga, and it is Animal Access, Body Talk Access for Animals, which teaches lay people 5 basic techniques for their own animals. So I'm doing a lot of projects for Body Talk, for lay people, for professionals, and for animal professionals. And that schedule is also on my website.
Okay, fantastic. Loesje, I wanted to ask you, I actually want to bounce this off you. When I was connecting with one of the animals, because the question for me always been, since the 90s, when I started really getting more involved in the metaphysical because of circumstances, but when I connected with the animals, what they said, my question was, why do they have less diseases than humans? And the one very profound answer that I got, which made total sense to me, but and maybe you could touch on it, the response was heart consciousness. And when I started going more into it, I realized that's exactly it. The animals vibrate to such a high conscious level, apart from most humans, because of social conditioning. But that's the higher vibration, an aspect of the high vibration that they hold. If you could touch on your perspective on that.
It would seem, in my experience so far, that there's also different levels of consciousnesses in the animal kingdom. And so their heart field, I completely agree, their lack of the egoic filters that the human has. So, but I have noticed, and we have noticed, that the animals in contact with humans do actually seem to get sicker or carry more disease. It takes a little bit longer for them to heal. But when I'm working with animals that are natural, living naturally, and especially wild animals, they don't get as sick as often. And when we do work with them, they heal almost instantly sometimes. Spontaneous healings to just days, where the animal that's living in a domestic or a zoo or sanctuary situation sometimes takes a bit longer. And that takes us into concepts of environmental factors and also the belief systems of the human mind that seem to layer belief systems on the animal. So we're projecting some of our beliefs onto the domestic animals, and then their healing process is almost always quicker than humans, but still not as fast as a wild animal. So I'm always on this thing about, please, your animals that are domestic animals at home, let them live naturally. Let your horse live as natural as possible out in the field. Don't put them in a stall 24/7. Allow them to be natural yourself, and then that process unfolds quicker, it would seem.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then I wanted to ask you, for people that aren't aware, because I've spoken to a couple of people, and they were excited to hear that you're going to be on the show, because they weren't aware of what you're doing. And then when I briefly explained it in my own way, they were very eager. I need to find out more about this. Are there any tips that you could give for people that have domesticated pets if their pet's not well, what are the possible indicators? Because a lot of people they go to work, they come back, there's the dog or the cat, they feed them, there's the budgie or the parrot, and, life goes on. But there are times that I've seen where these animals are actually calling out, and people just don't know the signs until it's too late at times.
But it's true, and we're the same with our own bodies, unfortunately. And for animals, most of the time, their mode of languaging or trying to get our attention is their physical actions and their behaviors. So at this point, for most people, they're going to have to notice the behaviors and the physical actions. And so often, we get mad at our animals for doing things. Maybe I get home and my dog's ripped up the couch, and I get mad because he's ripped up the couch. But if I go into a heart-brain state and connect with that animal, say, so why did you rip up the couch? And I get back a message like, you haven't been listening to me. My liver's been really sore, and I've been so sad that the dog down the road died, and he was my friend, and I'm very sad, and no one's listening to me, so I'm trying to get your attention. So look at their behaviors, look at the languaging that they're doing in a physical way. So now you notice, now what do? Well, I'm obviously a big believer in integrative medicine, which means that I love working with the veterinarians and the work that they do, but I also add consciousness medicine, things like the body talk system, things like, I would call it linking awareness, but other people would call it animal communication. Find a reputable animal communicator to, number one, help you learn how to communicate with your own animal nonverbally and receive messages, and also someone that could speak for your animal in the interim. And I think the biggest thing with the animals, please remember, stop talking to them all the time. We're always telling them what they should do, talking to them. Why don't we quiet ourselves and listen?
Yeah, definitely, because everything's telepathic. Just a question that has come through. For people that want to come onto your workshops, I know the first thing that they will say, but they're not telepathic.
I love that.
Yeah, we all telepathic, but for a person that's pretty much just starting out and then they just want to work with animals and that's pretty much their direction, how could you explain the telepathic aspects for someone that believes that they aren't telepathic?
I think that's great because the skeptics are my greatest teachers and I guess greatest validators. So I would call it that we are all born subtle sense aware. We have a birthright to receive information through what we'd call our normal senses. So that means I can actually feel something. You can hear my voice right now. But we also have our 6 subtle senses. So we have the ability when we're born to hear voices in our mind's eye, to see images in our imagination, to smell something in my imagination, taste something in my mind. If I say to your viewers right now, hey, could you imagine tasting an orange right now? Most of us go, yeah, I can imagine the taste of an orange. That's your subtle sense of taste. So we all have this ability. Could you imagine a fire truck roaring by right now? How noisy that would be? Oh, yeah, I can hear the fire truck. That's your subtle sense of hearing. So in the linking awareness class, what we do is we go through specific exercises to activate and to realize we're using our subtle senses. Then let's say maybe I can't really hear the voice of the elephant very well. Well, somewhere along the line, as a child or in my cellular memory, there's a belief system that it's wrong to hear voices. So I actually create a filter over that. We do exercises that help to remove those filters over time. You go home with a 3 CD set that gives you a journey to use and practice ideas to use to work on those subtle senses. So it's like using a muscle you haven't used for a while, but we all have that ability.
Yeah, and also from a metaphysical point of view, the higher chakras above the crown in humans is all about accessing the telepathy. So what you're saying is 100% correct because it's all there. We just need to be re-reminded and we need to cultivate it. So very, very interesting. And that's what I found with...
exactly.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying?
I just wanted to agree with you again. It's about reconnecting to that. It's about remembering, and it's never been gone. It's just about opening up to it again. It's as if it's sitting there in dormancy for most of us.
Yeah, and also the more you stimulate the higher chakras above the crown, you connecting to 0 point consciousness.
That's the interesting thing, is the more that the animals remind us of this nonverbal receiving and sending of information through what I would call the heart brain or one brain state, then the more our life starts to flow, because we get into this state where we're communicating with that level of ourself that is that oneness. So the animals bring us back into that space. And it's a profound experience to realize we actually can listen to that aspect of ourselves.
Yeah. And what I also say to people is that animals are so closer to God consciousness than what a lot of people actually realize. And from what you're saying it just reassures the people that I've spoken to that definitely they are so much closer to the 0 point consciousness, the God consciousness, than people actually understand. Previously understood.
Well, you've heard that one. How do you spell dog backwards?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
G-O-D.
Yeah. Loesje, I know that it's so amazing, and it gets people to actually think, because they are, and it's quite amazing just with dogs. I mean, I had a client years ago who was, had a bad history, who was an abuser, and when he was going through his whole healing process, later on I found out what he would do to his animal. But the one thing that really broke him down once he started getting in touch with his heart center, that whenever he would knock his dog around, it would always come back to give him love. He couldn't understand that. But once we broke through, and this big person just broke down, tears, and really started understanding life, which he just started embarking on his own healing process, then he realized what the animal was trying to do, or his dog was trying to do, was actually say to him in a loving, gentle way, even after the abuse, it's okay, I'm really here for you. But he couldn't see that. So a lot of people don't see what the animal kingdom, like you said, the insect kingdom, what they're really trying to do. And part of this is also to teach people, wake up and actually, in a way, smell the roses, look at everything, insects. For me, it's also, some of the people I speak to are very shamanic. They say it's messages. With certain big events are happening in my life, these huge big spiders out of nowhere will appear. Or where I live in Johannesburg in South Africa, it's just impossible to see an eagle in the city. And a couple of weeks ago, this magnificent eagle, I was hanging up washing, I had to turn around and looked in the sky. This magnificent eagle was doing circles out in the far distance, a couple of kilometers away. And as I connected and I got the confirmation, it went off into the sunset, basically. So they give us amazing, phenomenal messages. I just want to come back to your projects, if we may, just to discuss, because you do a lot. What you've been involved in. I know after you gave us a workshop in South Africa, you went to the Kruger Park. It would be quite amazing to hear what happened there with the Ellies. But let's start off with the different projects and what is being done to support animals, away from where you're living in the different parts of the world.
Well, I think what is really beautiful, because we've always looked up to our veterinarians and our caregivers and our sanctuary carers and owners. And what's interesting for me is we're getting huge response from those people now. The veterinarians are coming for classes. I'm doing a big project with Dr. Brute Galdikas in Borneo with the orangutans. And these people are seeing how much consciousness medicine and connecting and communicating with animals supports the animals that they're caring for. So I think it's a really powerful project. I've been in South Africa, just outside of Nelspruit, working with the chimps at Chimp Eden. We've had some amazing work with the chimps there and information that's been shared with them. So I do go to some of those locations around the world and work with the staff and the doctors and the vets that are working with these animals to bring a new awareness of a different way of looking at the animal kingdom.
Lovely.
I also recently spoke at a conference. It's called Awakening to Animals. And please go to their website, awakeningtoanimals.com. It's a group of people in the UK that are doing conferences where they bring in speakers, keynote speakers, and different forms of people that work with animals on all levels to bring more awareness. They've got a DVD set out now of the conference. So there's lots of projects like that. I'm also looking at speaking at a conference in Vietnam, and this conference is for all of the bear rescue societies of the whole world, from the sun bears to the black bears to the Komodos to the grizzly bears, and they are also understanding that the bears have a lot to share, and that if we would listen to the bears, we could help them also free themselves from some of the bile farms and also heal. So I'm doing a lot of speaking at conferences as well as facilitating classes.
That's lovely. Yeah, you're very, very busy. And the bears, have you connected with them and how they feel this? Because I'm sure it must be so difficult for them to actually conceptualize how humans, I'm talking about the ones that badly treat them, how they actually are able to get themselves to do something like this against animals. I mean, have you ever had any that level of communication?
Well, I was just recently teaching a class in Smithers, British Columbia, Canada, and there is a bear sanctuary there where Angelica has been for years rescuing black bears, Kodiak bears, grizzly bears, and the Komodos. And what she told me is every single bear, no matter how many that she has supported. So what happens is maybe the mother bear gets killed or gets hit on the road and they have the cubs. So they raise the cubs until they're old enough to go back into the wild. And she says there's not one that she doesn't, when she turns them out and they run back into the forest, they stop and look back and thank her. And on top of that, maybe a year, 6 months, 2 years, 3 years down the road, if that same bear got hurt, they actually find their way back to the sanctuary for help because they know they're going to get cared for. And once that they're well again, off they go back into the wild.
Yeah.
That's communication.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And it's such an honor to have you on because this is the message that we're all getting out there. Whether we metaphysicians that want to work with in the animal aspects as well, they have that higher consciousness, and it's so amazing. The other thing that I wanted to ask, which I do see often here in South Africa, is people take these monkeys and they have them as pets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anything that you would suggest for people that, in a level, it is ignorance for them because the little monkey's cute and it comes from the Amazon, and then as it gets older, it might get a little bit out of hand. What would you recommend for something like that?
It would be really great if they just never had them as pets and allowed them to live in the wild and support humanity from that place in the wild. And I think if anybody needs to understand that, could they please go to the Jane Goodall Foundation in Nelspruit for the chimpanzees, because those chimps come from that kind of rearing. A lot of them have been abused. A lot of them were pets. And what happens when they mature and they get to a certain stage, they're not so easy to handle, be around anymore. Now where do they go? They cannot be turned back into the wild because they've been humanized. And they'll go back to the human and then they'll eventually be killed. So it's almost like this short-term death sentence, because in the length of the monkey or the chimp or the orangutan's life, at a certain point they're not going to be able to be handled by those owners and they have to go somewhere and they cannot go back into the wild. And I think also, people like Dr. Galdikas in Borneo are teaching that as well, because some of the orangutans that she gets we're taking into homes and they can't handle them when they get bigger. Same with the little monkeys. So please leave them in the wild. Let them teach us from there and let them help humanity from a place of naturalness.
Yeah, because myself as well, I did a bit of work for a couple of months, but then with work it just got impossible to keep going. With an organization called Free Me, and they rehabilitate animals and then obviously put them into specific sanctuaries or put them back into the wild. But it is true, a lot of people see little meerkats or monkeys, or they take them in as babies, and afterwards they realize that they're too much to handle because they need to be free. And then they get confiscated by the authorities, and it's just really, the best thing is leave them out there. That's where they belong. I don't think anyone would like to be kidnapped and locked in a house or a little cage. Let's talk about Kruger.
Can I say one thing, John?
Yes.
But can you see in all of that humanity's drive or wish to connect with animals to the point where they were trying to domesticate them to be with them? And this has been my whole thing with my class called Linking Awareness, is that let's go into the wild and let's connect with those animals, but we never have to touch them. We never have to hold them hostage or captive, but we could have a deep communication and interaction with them from a non-local or from a non-touching perspective or non-ownership perspective. So all of a sudden we're teaching things around the world, and I have also facilitators that I've qualified to teach this class where we can have that depth of connection, but we don't have to own them and put them into captivity and cages. So I like what you're saying in a way, because it shows that the human really wants to connect with the animal at a deep level. But what I'm saying is we can do that without having to own them and without having to touch them all the time.
Definitely. Yeah. And then, Loesje, just intuitions, just popped a question here. Laboratory experiments. My belief is like exactly what you said. If you want to learn about animals, learn about them in their own home environments. But the animals that get experimented on, I believe scientists would learn a lot more. Going out in the jungles or going out in the wild and living like they do and actually understand them, than just having to sit and plug electrodes and trying to find out how they operate. I'm very, very anti-laboratory experiments and testing. But, just if there's anything that you feel from an animal's perspective,
Well, I think that we can drop a lot of names of people who have done that in the past and are doing that now. And, the easy one, because we've been talking about the primates, is Dr. Leakey's Three Angels and Jane Goodall, Diane Fossey, and Dr. Brute Mary Galdikas, who did just that. They went out and they spent their lives in the jungles and with the primates, and they learned in communion with them in their own habitats. So for that form, I think there's a lot of ways we can learn. Definitely, let's not go down the whole road of sanctuaries and zoos and what they represent and what the animals are doing there. And then we had to go down to another thread of laboratory for testing for other reasons, which I would say is very inhumane. I think in this world of technology and our amazing minds, we could find way better ways to learn about new information other than using the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
Hey, let's connect in with our star brothers and sisters a little bit more who have a higher intelligence and ask them some ideas.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's another show.
Yeah, that's another topic, and that is happening. That's already happening. So there's a lot of intergalactic, interdimensional stuff happening, and it is awesome. A lot of people are waiting for December it's already happened. And like we were speaking about off air, there's a lot of processing and there's a lot of unfolding and there's a lot of movements happening and saying, we are all one, we all equal, whether we look different, whether we got 4 legs, have fur, have fins, we actually all from the same 0 point consciousness.
Well, it would seem.
Loesje, could you tell us some of the animals I know do connect intergalactically? Would you say that's a true statement?
Well, it's certainly been my experience in receiving information from them. That's very possible.
Okay.
I agree.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Kruger Park. Let's talk about Kruger Park because you were out here for a while. I believe you have been to South Africa before last year.
Yes, I have. And I'm very blessed to have a great guide that takes me into the Kruger because he understands why I'm going there. And it's not to take pictures, but it's to communicate and learn from the animal kingdom that's there. If you go on my website, you'll see a couple of clips about a session we did with a warthog and also with the elephants, and definitely an elephant that I met there named Makumbu, who really prompted me to put together this Linking Awareness, intercellular communication, a healing journey class.
Yeah. No, definitely. And also, I mean, just coming back to the workshop, that I couldn't make the elephant one because of obviously the universe and whatever was happening in my life at the time. But definitely when I saw you working with the horses, with everyone that brought their pets, I mean, could you just explain about when the horses would have a release, and what would the effects of that release be when they were releasing the person's blocked energy and shifting their processes? What sort of like reaction does the animal, the horse or the dog have with response to their owner, that they're shifting their owner?
Yeah, so when we're doing communication work or consciousness medicine, energy medicine, healing work, we're noticing that the animals are helping us by physically showing signs of release to validate the shift of the blockage of energy, let's call it in the field or in the client or the person. And so, things that a horse will do when that happens is they might drop to the ground and roll. They might drop their head and start licking and chewing. They might roll their eyes in the back of their head. You might see some muscle twitching. You might see a male horse, release the penis and just drop out and go pee. They might defecate. They might all of a sudden just go running around like crazy. I was working with an orangutan named Charlie at the Singapore Zoo, and they had called me to do some work with him, so communication, but also advanced body talk. And during the session, he was releasing some held anger. So he had anger in his fascial system that had been there for years from something that had happened to him. And when he started releasing it, he tore apart his enclosure. He ripped everything. He smashed everything. He was screaming and yelling. And as soon as he finished releasing that anger, he came and sat in front of me and asked for the rest of the session again. Amazing. So they will freely release the energy blockages, and when they feel that it's back in harmony again, they'll just sit in front of you and ask for the next aspect of the session.
Yeah. And then with animals, what would you say have been what people would classify as the brutest or the most deadliest that you've ever worked with?
Could you repeat that question?
Okay. Have you worked with lions, and have you worked with leopard or cheetah or any of the more aggressive, as what people would classify as vicious or aggressive animals?
Yeah, and definitely I've been very blessed to work with the tigers and the different lions, so the cat family in the wild, and more predominantly in some of our sanctuaries and zoos. Very, very amazing. And even, I remember one tiger that I worked with in the Singapore Zoo, and he loved his keeper so much that was taking care of him over the years that he wanted me to tell his keeper that he would be passing soon. He would be transitioning and so-called dying or leaving his body, but he wanted his owner to know. So we did a session to support that change, and I think about 6 months later, he died. I remember another lion, it's a Tigon actually, unfortunately, a tiger-lion cross that lived at the Australian National Zoo, and same thing. He really wanted it's like they care about the humans that take care of them so much. He also wanted to tell her that he was transitioning soon, and within that year he did die. But the cool thing is, who he left his enclosure to is the white lions. So the white lions are there sharing their information now.
I love it.
And which, can I please remind you, in South Africa, in Timbavati, you have the white lions who are returning. And please look up Linda Tucker and the white lions. They're doing amazing work in raising consciousness. And it's times that have been prophesized when the white animals are coming back, the white buffalo, the white this, the white that. And surely in Africa, you have the white lions back.
Yeah, this was prophesied by a holy person of the South African National Tribe, or one of them, and he predicted that if I'm not mistaken, in the mid or late 80s, that the white lion would return. And at that stage, people thought he was absolutely insane. That it's just impossible to get a white lion. And then when the first one was birthed, pretty much in the African culture, then they understood that there was a huge shift, and the different shifts of consciousness actually coming to. But yeah, very, very interesting, because also with the white lines, they've got the most amazing blue eyes. I know that they have them, they raise them as little ones, and at some of the places over here, people pay a bit of money and go and touch them. I feel that is so wrong, that they should just let them be out of an enclosure where they can just be touched and played with and sort of like imprinted with human nature, human consciousness.
Well, John, that takes me back to my comment about we could allow them their space in nature again, but still communicate with them without having to have that physical contact. I know that as humans, we're so emotionally attached to that physical contact all the time. And why don't we connect from the heart to heart, without having that physical contact, and we go into a deeper level of connection with the animals. And please, as far as the white lions are concerned, Linda Tucker has written an amazing book, and it's called The Mystery of the White Lions. I'd like for some of your viewers to go find that book and read it. It's profound.
Okay, fantastic. Would you be having those links on your website?
Yeah, we are starting to put some of those links on our website as well, definitely.
Okay, fantastic. And then, Loesje, is there anything, before we wrap up, is there anything that you feel would be amazing to share? Any other insights, any other, just any other wisdom that you could just share for people that, don't understand this concept of communicating with animals? The healing potentials that the animals do give people, just to get a refresher on those aspects as well, and anything else you'd like to add in.
Well, I'd like us to honor the animals that are sharing our homes with us, whether it's the birds, the dogs, the cats, or the horses in the yard, and to recognize that we have a deep connection with them, and speak to them as if they're your sister or brother or mother or father or friend. You speak to them and they can understand, because when you speak, you're still sending frequency and information, light and information that they're receiving. So even if you can't go out and take a class with someone like me, just talk to your animals, and in your quiet time or in your dream time or in your imagination, they will respond to you. But I think the big thing is they're there for a reason. They're keeping us well. They're teaching us. And when we can start to look at them from that perspective, we'll start to see a different animal in our household.
Wonderful. Loesje, thank you so much. It's been absolutely amazing having you online again. Wonderful chatting to you again. And hope that you're going to be coming back to South Africa soon.
Well, I am. We're planning a 8-day horse class, so it's going to be linking awareness on horseback, and it's going to be in the Kaapse-Hoop. It's going to be Adam's Calendar and up the old Gold Trail in that area. There's some sacred vortexes there, if you don't know, the stone circles, and we're going to be communicating with nature and with the rocks and with the horses for 8 days. So if anybody's interested in that, do send me an email through my website. We're just planning the dates for that right now.
Okay, fantastic. And then also what the question that has come in is for Europe. Is there anything that you organizing there? Any workshops there that you're going to be doing?
We're looking at a workshop in the UK again. I have some hosts there that are looking for dates, and then also we'll be going into Germany and slowly working through some of the European countries. There's a huge interest in this work, whether it's body talk for animals or the linking awareness class. So we're just looking at travel dates for Europe as well, and most likely in the next year we'll be back in the UK.
Okay, fantastic. Loesje, thank you so much for joining us. All the best. Well, there you go, folks. Please contact Loesje, view her website, look at the workshops available. She is an absolutely amazing person. I had the honor of meeting her in 2011 here in South Africa. And yeah, let's get back to nature. Let's open the heart centers. That's where the whole world's moving to. It's a step closer to understanding your own being, understanding and activating your master existence. And many thanks for joining me again on this Wednesday evening on awakeradio.co.uk. And I'd like to just leave you with just some philosophy. patience, and the mulberry leaf turns into a silk gown. See you again next week. Same place, same time. Many thanks, folks. Cheers.